Nice to meet you.
See you.
Here we go.
Ben, want to get into the world situation and so on, and I would think, you know, when he talks about the state of the world and the possibility of conflict and so on, I think you dismiss these things, you know, in terms of whether there's going to be another war and all of that.
Yes, exactly. Dismissed it.
You know, dismissed in the sense
Yes.
that.
Okay.
And if he asks you if you're running the world, I think you dismiss that as well.
Sure, yeah.
But I think we can dismiss that before we start.
Okay. Well, all right. So let me start though. I know that I've read quotes from you before, and I believe also from your memoirs, where you have said that you would like to see the formation of a world government. What sort of vision do you have for, you know, humanity to stop war and get its act together? So.
Well, I'm afraid I have to start with what you recall. I don't recall that I have said, and I don't think I really feel, that we need a world government. We need governments of the world that work together and collaborate, but I can't imagine that there would be any likelihood or even that it would be desirable to have a single government elected by the people of the world. So I think whatever you heard was misrepresented my feelings.
Okay. Quote, if you go to Wikipedia and Google, under David Rockefeller saying
yes.
that. Now,
what I've told you is my
sure.
feeling.
Well, you're the man. Now, the other thing is, people are worried about the situation with Iran and some kind of wider conflict emerging from that. What do you think is going to happen there? What's your view about the tensions between Iran and the United States right now?
Well, I think the first thing is that Iran itself is a problem, but its relationship with its neighbors, probably from the point of view of the United States, is the thing that we would be most concerned about, because there are such different points of view in the area, and the possibilities of conflict between the nations within the area is certainly what is of concern to our country.
Okay. Now, here in Asia, people say that the current structure of world institutions is not fair. They say that European peoples account for 17% of the world population and 40% of GDP, but they control 4 out of the 5 permanent Security Council seats. Asians are 65% of the world population and 40% of GDP, so they think some sort of better representation is needed. What is your view about this?
I think it's an issue that understandably and legitimately is raised by the nations with a smaller percentage. When the United Nations was created back right after World War II, the world situation was a totally different one, and the influence of different powers was very different. Therefore, I think that it is understandable that those nations with large populations that feel they're underrepresented have a point, and that this should be addressed. I don't think it's something that, to me, is immediately a serious problem, but I do think that it's something that should be taken up in the United Nations, and that over time some redistribution of voting power within the United Nations structure seems likely and probably appropriate.
Also, sort of difficult for me to ask this, but these days conspiracy theories are running rampant on the internet, and I thought you could, metaphorically speaking, take the bull by the horns and, let me ask you confront you with or ask you what these people are saying. First of all, they say that you are the secret ruler of the world. What is your response to that?
Well, in the first place, you're not the first person who has raised this issue. There have been people ever since I've had any kind of position in the world who have accused me of being a ruler of the world. I have to say, I think for the large part, I would have to decide to describe them as crackpots. I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever and isn't true and won't be true. And to raise it as a serious issue seems to me to be irresponsible.
What about the candidate Ron Paul, who's talking about bringing the powers of the Federal Reserve back to the U.S. government, under the presidential control or control of Congress?
I haven't read about that. Is that an issue?
Well, he's one of the Republican.
He's a Republican candidate, and that's what he's publicly calling for. So,
I would not look upon that as one of the great issues that needs to be addressed at this time.
Issues are
running our own country better and having our own country play a more balanced and effective role in the world.
Okay. And what's wrong now with the way it's running, the U.S. government? I mean,
you mean wrong with our country, or?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that is needed is the fact that I don't think enough people in high positions in our country accept the importance of our world role with sufficient gravity. I mean, in other words, I think the tendency, because of politics and getting elected, is to stress local issues, and of course they are important, but I would like to see more of the leaders of our country spend more time in traveling, for one thing, getting to know the world, and studying history. To me, one of the sad things about our country is that our leadership, to a greater extent than I would like, is more concerned about very domestic issues than they are about our relations in the world.
Now, what about the plunging dollar and the rising euro, and apparently Asian countries have been unloading their U.S. Treasury holdings? Are you worried about the economic situation now?
Well, I think that that has to be related to the problems within our own country, and in the ones reading about in the papers today, that there's grave concern about what our role should be, how it should be handled, and how we should better manage our own domestic economy. And I think this is becoming a serious issue that is going to have to be addressed by any politicians who wish to be re-elected, that they have to see that the issue of our economy and what influences it is better understood and more successfully addressed.
You're meeting the emperor, is that correct?
I'm I'm looking forward to that.
What will you be talking about?
That will certainly, to a large extent, be his decision. My impression is that emperors tend to lead conversations. I have had the good fortune and privilege of meeting him a number of times before. I would hope we would have a chance to talk a little bit about his views of the world and how he feels our country is relating to Japan. But also, our family has had quite close relations with Japan for many years and with the royal family. So my suspicion and even hope is that we might also talk about those relationships in the past and where they might go in the future.
Japanese newspapers have talked about this weekend about an imminent fundamental change in U.S.-Japan security relations. Have you heard anything about this?
I don't think so, really. And it's not an issue that I would think the emperor would want to discuss with me. I mean, I can't imagine that would be one of the things we talked about. I don't think it would be appropriate.
And your nephew, Jay, he studied in Japan, didn't he?
He spent 3 years here.
And do you have good relations with him? Some Japanese people are telling me that you've had some sort of fight, but again, I don't know.
No idea what they're talking about. We have very close, loving family relations. I don't know what...
All right. Well, again, this is just what people have told me. I don't know, that's why I'm trying to confirm it. Now,
I don't think they knew what they were talking about.
Now, which issue do you think is more important now, the war on terror or global warming?
There are two major issues, both of which have to be addressed. They're very separate, and I think the way we deal with them there have to be different steps taken. They're just fairly separate issues, but both important, major importance.
Okay. Now, if you had to say one message to the world, what would it be?
I think that the best hope for peace and prosperity in the world is greater cooperation among nations, which in turn will be produced if both our governments and the people of our countries travel more and get to know each other better.